Hi, and welcome to British Girl Bakes. I'm Emily, and I'm so excited to share this fun Halloween cake decorating idea with you. The techniques are all very simple, and I've incorporated the trending fault line cake style to give the design a current but creepy look. Okay, let's get started. Build your cake as normal. I'm using my black chocolate cake, but you can use any cake flavour and fillings for this. Cover the cake with black frosting, either buttercream or ganache, and this is my black buttercream that won't stain your teeth, and I've put the link for the tutorial and the recipe in the top of the screen and in the description below this video. This is just a crumb coat, so it doesn't need to be perfect, but it does need to be thick enough to cover the middle section of the cake so you don't see any cake through it. And the sides and top need to be straight and smooth. If you have cake showing through or crumbs in your frosting, you can just apply another coat of frosting over the top. Put the cake in the fridge to set and sketch out some creepy eyes, or print some from the internet. You can just sketch one eye if you're worried about making two eyes identical, which I definitely can't do. Trace the eyes onto acetate or parchment paper, and I'm doing this by sketching one eye, tracing it, and then flipping the acetate over to trace the mirror image, with about half an eye's spacing in between the two eyes. Then cut the eyes out, stabbing your scissors into the centre and cutting around, leaving the acetate or parchment around them intact, so you can use it as a stencil in the next step. You can skip this step and make the eyes out of fondant instead if you prefer, and I did that for my Halloween cake last year, and I've put the link for that tutorial in the top of the screen and in the description below this video. Take your cake out of the fridge and wrap the acetate or parchment around it so that the eyes are somewhere in the middle section of the cake. Mine are too high, so I'm going to trim the bottom inch off the acetate to lower them. Wrap the acetate tightly around the cake, and you can pin it onto the cake to secure it. If you're using parchment paper, toothpicks will work for this as well. Then use buttercream to fill the eyes. I'm using this bright green buttercream, which I've tinted using grass green gel colour. Spread the buttercream over the eye holes. Smooth it out with your offset spatula, or you could use a frosting smoother for this, scraping off enough so that you don't have eyes that bulge out of the cake, but leaving enough buttercream behind so that you completely cover up the black frosting underneath. It's really important that the acetate or parchment is wrapped tightly around the cake, so that none of this buttercream gets underneath the stencil and smudges the outline of your eyes. When you're happy with the buttercream coverage, peel off the acetate and you'll have creepy eyes on the cake. If any buttercream crept under the acetate, you can scrape it off now with a toothpick. If you're enjoying this tutorial, please click the thumbs up button. Put your cake back in the fridge so that the eyes can set, and meanwhile, draw the black pupils of the eyes onto a piece of paper, using your stencil to space them. And then trace the pupils onto another piece of acetate or parchment paper to make a second stencil with those two holes. When the buttercream eyes have completely set, after about 30 minutes in the fridge, pin your second stencil over the buttercream eyes and spread black buttercream over the holes to make the pupils. Again, spreading the buttercream thinly and smoothly before peeling off the acetate and leaving the completed eyes behind. You can do any touch-ups with a toothpick. Now for the fault line. Use orange buttercream to create a brick wall for the eyes to peek out of. This is my 4-minute buttercream tinted with orange, red, and a drop of brown to give it an earthy brick colour. After covering the top of the cake, spread the buttercream onto the top and bottom sections of the sides of the cake, leaving a gap in the middle where the eyes peek out. Make sure the buttercream goes all the way down to the cake board at the bottom and up above the top of the cake around the sides, to avoid any gaps or air pockets in the frosting. Try to get the frosting the same thickness all the way around the cake. Then use a frosting smoother to smooth the buttercream, going around a few times and touching up any air pockets with more buttercream to get a nice, even, smooth layer of frosting. Because this is supposed to be a crumbling wall, it doesn't really have to be perfect, but it's easiest to make it neat now and then choose where you want your imperfections later, instead of leaving some areas messy now and having to work around them later. I'm choosing to leave the top edge of the frosting uneven, but you can smooth that if you prefer, and then put the cake in the fridge for 30 minutes to partially set the frosting. You don't want it to get rock hard, but you want it to hold its shape under gentle pressure. Next, you'll need a textured mat, or an impression mat, and this one has a brick texture. You can score on rows of bricks using a sharp knife instead, but this is much easier and much less time consuming. If your frosting hasn't set enough, it will come off on your impression mat and smudge the texture on the cake, like this. Chill the cake for a bit longer and try again, going around as many times as you need to until you have a noticeable brick texture all over the orange buttercream. Then, if the frosting has started to soften while you're impressing the texture, chill the cake again, just for 10 or 15 minutes this time. And now we're going to add some colour to the brick wall to make it look more realistic. Put a tiny bit of brown and red gel colours onto a plate or palette, and you only need a teeny tiny bit. Add some vodka or any other clear alcohol, or even a clear flavour extract to thin the colours out a bit, and dip a paintbrush into one of the colours to start with, and brush a few lines around the cake, and then dip it into the other colour and do the same. Then dip your paintbrush into plain vodka or whatever alcohol or extract you're using, and brush it all over the cake, blending the colours and making the bricks look more realistic. If you have any smudges of buttercream or gel colour on your cake board, you can wipe them off now with a paper towel. To make the wall look old and crumbly, you can add some cracks using a sharp knife, cutting a zigzag line through the orange frosting right up to the edge, where it meets the black, and go over it a few times to widen it so you can see the black frosting through the crack in the orange frosting. I'm using a toothpick to widen this crack a bit more, and adding more cracks in both sections of the bricks, above and below the eyes. I love the way the brick wall looks with these cracks. As a final touch, I'm adding a glaze over the eyes to make them glisten, and this is a mixture of 1 teaspoon of glucose and 1 teaspoon of vodka, microwaved for 30 seconds and stirred together to make a gel. I'm adding some grass green gel colour, the same as I used to tint the buttercream in the eyes, and then brushing this over the eyes so that they glisten. Ta-da! A creepy Halloween fault line cake. If you make this cake and share any photos on Instagram, please tag British Girl Bakes so I can see your creations. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this tutorial, please click the thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel for a new cake decorating tutorial every week.